Hello, everyone. I'm Nick McCarthy, Director of Programming at NewFest, and thank you for joining us for this special closing night film of No Hard Feelings. We hope you've enjoyed over 11 days of LGBTQ film, and I must say that we are delighted to be closing the festival with No Hard Feelings, as we shouldn't play favorites, but I do think it is one of the best, and it's also a wonderful nod to the future of emerging LGBTQ filmmakers, as well as storytelling. So it's my absolute honor and pleasure to present and bring to the screen and stage screen the co-director, the writer, and co-writer and director Faraz Sharia, as well as the two leads of the film, Benjamin Rajapour and Banafsha Ermazdi. Thank you so much for being here with us today. Are you in Berlin right now?
Yes.
Yeah, nice. Oh, I'd love to have this international scope. But once again, an immense congratulations to all of you, from the craft of the film to the performances, just to the vibrant energy. I know that it must have been a really wonderful organic collaboration that really speaks to audiences and leaps off the screen, wherever you may be watching it. Faraz, I'd love to start with you, sort of as the co-writer and the director. I know you've talked a lot about this film being autofiction, and it breathes with authenticity and vibrancy. I was wondering if you can speak a bit to sort of the origins of creating this story and the moment you knew that this story had to be told in film and shared with others.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I moved away from my hometown, which is Cologne, where I was born and raised, to a really small town in the middle of Germany called Hildesheim, and studied cultural studies there. So I was living there for, I think, 1 or 2 years, like already parting from my very like comforting household where my parents raised me, and trying to like cope with being on your own, and did a lot of pickpocket in like department stores and so on, and I got caught. So I was sentenced to serve community hours, and with this mindset of like a really I don't know, highly self-centered pop culture millennial kid, I was then suddenly working in this very small town as a translator for refugees who almost had the same age than I had back in the day. It was the summer of 2015, and the so-called refugee crisis was at its peak in Germany. And yeah, I think that was somehow the starting point. I really thought that this could be a nice premises for a feature film, creating a dialogue between these different generations of Irani diaspora living in Germany, and also maybe like reflecting on my own migration history. Yeah, and then I just started to get the ball rolling with Paulina, who co-wrote the script, and yeah, obviously also started to think of like the power of fiction and like what we wanted to express and represent politically with the film.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and as I mentioned, it very much feels sort of like a family collaboration too. I mean, I'm hoping. I know you may not have seen each other, at least Banafsha too. That could be a family reunion kind of right now. I'd love to hear about the casting process, and Benjamin and Banafsha, if you can talk a bit about your characters on the page and what you knew you wanted to bring to them and breathe life to them, because it's not just about biological family here, but also about chosen family.
Should I start? Yeah, okay. I think, a really broad question. I think the casting was really early in the process. I don't know if it's always that early in films, because I haven't been in so many features, to be honest. I was cast 2 years before we did the shooting, and I did a lot of constellation castings with the character of Benjamin, and also with the character that Oydin played, and I think I did like 8 or 9 of these constellation castings. And I think when I was approached with the project, there was only a treatment, and I think we went through 10 pages of 10 stages of the script together. And in this like development of the project, I think we kind of became a weird chosen family. And then also, I mean, Farah's parents are playing the parents of Harvey's in the film, and it was also kind of like having your own parents on set.
Yeah, that sums it up basically. So we were both, Aydin was attached much later than us to the project because that was just a harder search in a way. And so I think shortly after Banafsha, I was cast to play Parvis. And for us, I think Faraz invited me to sort of contemplate and collaborate on a character that would sort of represent this position of the generation in the middle and the privileges that that entails, and sort of to find out what kind of protagonist or protagonistic queer POC, young, unapologetic character we want to tell, because we want to see that in cinema. So I think for us, at least, it was a lot about thinking about how this person reflects on their own privileges or their life and their struggles and how they move and how they talk. And it was more about building a new kind of archetype that hasn't been seen in a lot of mainstream German pop culture.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I love how, you bring so much life to the many worlds, even within Germany and such too. I was wondering if you can speak a bit about, exploring or even location scouting everywhere from the refugee center to the nightclubs. I know you mentioned you cast early, so you collaborated a lot. Did you all together go and search and have a nightclub experience? Say like, hey, this is an idea that we can do with that. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of like collective experiences going on throughout the 3 years of production, but I don't think it went that far that our actors accompanied us scouting the locations. Because I mean, this project, I mean, it was a super DIY structure within which the project was produced, but still we really tried to at least we really try to study the ways film production work, and then to know what we want to like continue to use as a system and what we want to oppose maybe. And regarding location, for example, that was like because it was a huge process of like asking everyone in that small town who owned a business, who had like spaces that could be interesting, but also in a way really finding this like multitude of architectures and situations that really like in a way reflect on this like public, the private and the public sphere, but also I think on like the rural and more urban environments. I think because we always thought of this space as, or I like the locations of the film as somehow like generic cities or generic just like coming of age spots, because we didn't really wanted it to feel super specific, because this is like not just a film about German experiences of racism, for example, but more of, I think, the way post-migrant experiences and the ones of people of color and Black people living in second or third or first generation make in a lot of countries that are dominated by the white gaze.
No, absolutely. And I also love how a lot of this is informed by both your visual and audio palette too. I was wondering if you can speak a bit about, working with your cinematographer to create this visual language. And also, did you always have a playlist in mind as you were writing the screenplay? Like, was Sailor Moon always in there? Sort of curious to hear about that process too and coming to life.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the only thing I do have experience in, like in terms of filmmaking, is music videos. I shot a lot of music videos before we worked on No Hard Feelings, and that definitely affected, I think, the way the script was written. So the first thing I had after like writing the expose was a huge playlist of songs, and a lot of the scenes are connected to one certain soundtrack, and that we sometimes even used when talking about the scene or the characters even. And I think like the idea of being many, or of like maybe even like reflecting on a status quo that is defined by pluralistic perspectives and societies, is very much inspiring also the visual and general, I think, the aesthetics of the film. So we never wanted to make something that feels like linear or like understandable, but rather opaque and erratic in a way, so that yeah, because I think that's especially when talking about coming of age, the disorientation, and also like I think having multiple ideas of who you can become or who you are is such an important drive for the film, and it made sense to us to use that also for the all aesthetic aspects.
No, absolutely. I know I saw this film in Berlin, where, of course, you're all awarded with the Teddy Award for Best Feature Film, which I think is very deserved. You did have the opportunity, I know, to see this film with audiences before COVID. I know the room that I was in at Berlin was electric afterwards, too. I'm always curious to hear, were there any audience members afterwards? And I'd love to hear from all three of you, if this is possible, that came up to you afterwards and shared a story that you know, the movie that inspired them to, you know, want to tell you, that ended up resonating with you. Any audience?
I think in general, a lot of people come up to us and share stories, or at least try to. I mean, now also because in Germany we have a different situation concerning COVID, so we are able to. We came out last week or a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and so we're able to have audiences and physical screenings, but it is different in terms of reception or communication, because of course people have to leave the rooms, or we can have Q&As, but it's sort of it's a different situation than usual. But so we here actually have these live moments, and it's astonishing how many people, and even people who aren't specifically of Iranian heritage but share certain experiences of migration or being in families like that, a lot of it resonates with a lot of people, and not at least because there's just no real surfaces in German pop culture that reflects on their history and biographies and experiences. So I think it really speaks to a lot of people because their experiences for the first time seem to be, and it's sad that something that's that specific in a way has to be, you know, like a has to be like the storyteller for many stories, because every life and every biography is very specific. But right now it sort of works as this, common space for people who have migrant parents to come together, watch this film, and reflect on whiteness and these spaces and microaggressions and the desires and of these kinds of youths. So we get that on a daily basis, actually.
I think I would also want to add that it has brought me closer in a weird way to my mother, watching the film with her, because my experience is that like Farsi is my mother tongue, or like my first language, but it's not the language that I'm fluent in now, but this is the language I'm talking in the film. And I think a lot of the experiences my character makes in the film resonate with the experiences my mother made or I made in this country. And I think it is really a painful truth to not be able to communicate properly with your parents. And I think for me personally, the film is also such a gift because it gives me a connection to my mom in a way that I didn't have before. And I think this is what resonates maybe with other people that I heard from who are like first generation, second generation, or third generation, that they now have something to start a conversation from now, and I think this is really what makes it so special in a way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think, you know, as you're all mentioning too, these are the stories that you would like to see on screen, and someone has to start them. And I think this is a huge breakthrough moment that, you know, hopefully will inspire a lot of folks to create their own stories that they will then share on screen and proliferate further. I'd love to actually ask Faraz. I know you mentioned that your family too, your parents are in this film. Have they seen the film too? What do they think of it?
No, never. No, of course. I mean, I remember, I think it was Christmas. I mean, I know that it was Christmas when I showed them the first edit of the rough cut. And there was such a funny situation because there was my brother, his ex-girlfriend, and they are like, we all sat there and watched it. And it was actually quite cool. I mean, they obviously knew the script and they knew what would happen, but still, I mean, seeing yourself acting in a film next to other scenes and situations, it was overwhelming in a way. And I would lie if there weren't struggles to discuss or to at least like sensitive moments of discussion. But it was like, in general, I think it's such a gift for the whole like creative, but also, as Banasha also already said, for the production to have them on board. And I think this film would never be the same without them and their energy and their warmth in a way. Because I think there's a certain intimacy and like honesty, I think, that speaks through the film, and that, I mean, at least for myself, I think that also comes from knowing that my parents have my back, and not just mine, but the one from everyone on set. But yeah, it was definitely an undertaking and a lot of fun and risks also to work together.
Yeah, I love that you showed it to them on. Oh, sorry, go on.
You can say that they were kind of the backbone of the project, and they really became, not in a like kitschy way, but they became the parents of everybody. And because they were so supportive and also so well organized, they sort of, they became the right and the left hand to the project in a way. And everybody knew what they were doing. We were, you know, aspiring professionals, all of us, but it really gave the whole thing a drive that, I agree, I think it wouldn't have had if they hadn't been part of the project.
No, absolutely. I love that. It was shown on Christmas too. What a present to everyone. And for the final question, I love to note, you know, the final line of the film. You know, the future is ours. I think it's so powerful. You know, I was wondering if Faraz, you can speak to whether that was always going to be the final line and beat of the film. And I'd also love to know, you know, this was a project and a debut for you, Faraz, and Benjamin and Banafsha. You said that this was one of the first large acting roles that you had. I'd love to know what you have coming up, and also, you know, what you'd love to see in queer film going forward too.
Regarding the line, I think I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was always scripted as the last line in the film. Maybe there's a certain way of bitterness, I think, or it's at least a very bittersweet moment, I think, for the character of Banafsha saying that, because obviously she is already living in the presence, but there is no real like space or possibility right now to think of herself existing in the presence. And I think like the future as a space to project a lot of potentials, and also I think demands in, was super powerful for this project. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure Banasha has thoughts on that too. But anyways, yeah, I mean, you already also asked about the other projects and so on. So.
And Banafsha, what about your next projects, and also what you'd like to see sort of for queer film in the future?
I think I would like for queer films in the future to have a not so narrow understanding of like what queerness is, and because I think like our film is often considered to be like a gay movie, And I think this is really like a limitation that is set by the idea of how to distribute a film. Because I think people who think they're going to see a gay movie are going to be pretty disappointed when they see me at some point so much. But yeah, I think that this is important. And also the idea of, I mean, all of us in the film, we're still really normatively like good looking, you know, like we're young and able-bodied and skinny, and like Oidin is really like packed. So I think there should be, or I mean, it's everybody's like question to ask, why am I surrounded by people who look like me, especially when it comes to beauty or like this kind of body shapes and forms. Yeah.
I agree. I think that we're often used here in a very white sort of culture journalistic context. We're often used to proclaim some kind of future or some kind of like general idea of what the depiction of queerness or a BIPOC life should be. And I think that this film can't sort of carry the responsibility of what's been really missed out in a culture that is really driving on a white hetero cis matrix. And I totally agree that I think I wish for the future to include more biographies and have more things become archetypes and reflect on other kinds of lives that, you know, aren't really being shown.
Absolutely. I think that, you know, this film will serve as an inspiration for folks to know that they are valid, they can share their stories, and I know that this is going to be, you know, a huge moment for everyone, and I want to thank you all for contributing your voices in this beautiful film. I know audiences will love it, and a lot of artists will be impacted and inspired by this going forward. So I want to thank you all and congratulate you all again. For being our wonderful closing night film and inspiring this generation, and I'm sure many, many future generations. So thank you all so much.
Thank you. Stay strong, New York. We love you. Stay strong. Everything will get better.
This is a
heart for New York. We're with you.
Thank you.
Bye.
And thank you all. It was wonderful to speak with Faraz, Benjamin, and Vanasha, and it was wonderful to have you join us to hear this conversation. Please tell everyone about No Hard Feelings, and thank you for enjoying over 120 films that NewFest has to offer at this festival this year. We have year-round programming, of course, and we'll be back next year for the 33rd Annual LGBT Festival in October 2021. So please go to newfest.org, sign up to become a member. Maybe even, I know this film will be available until October 30th. Please recommend to your friends and maybe even watch it again. So thank you all for being here and enjoying the New York LGBTQ Film Festival. Thank you.